Man, I just want to tell you, this is the hottest station that I've ever listened to.
New Sound Radio, streaming live around the world at newsoundradio.com.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're now listening to A Reasonable Conversation with Prerna on New Sound Radio 92 FM. That's right, we took a bit of a break, but now we're back and bigger and better than ever before. Hope everyone's having a lovely weekend. The sun is out and we've got a great debate for you till 1 p.m, so don't go anywhere. And today's debate will be on cow slaughter. If you want to call in, the studio number is 0208 472 9292 and our text number is 07961 387 787. And stay in the studio, I'm joined with a very special guest, Miraj Patel. Hi Miraj, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm pleased to be on the show.
Yeah, great to see you again. And for all our listeners, Miraj Patel is an active Hindu campaigner. He's studying for the bar. He's also a committee member for Jalaram Satsang Mandal. So Miraj, welcome back to New Sound Radio. You were on last week speaking about the Upton Centre, is that correct?
Yes, I was. Yes, that's correct. I was on Ganji Bay show last weekend with, last Sunday with a few other leading members of the Upton Centre issue, and I think we had a very, very good show last week too.
Brilliant. How's all the campaigning going with the Upton Centre? Where are we at now?
I think we're making good progress. There is lots of things in the pipeline that needs to be done. We're actually calling for support from the wider Hindu community. As mentioned last week, we need people to awaken, especially young Hindus that are still sleeping. Sorry to use the actual that actual specific phrase, but they're still sleeping. They're still calling themselves Hindus and not actually doing a good cause for the Hindu wider cause. So what I urge people to do is get involved. If these type of injustices can happen now, just imagine what they will be like in 5 to 10 years' time. We'll have no places for our youth to learn about our culture, our dharma, our languages. You know, it's just we're going to be in a very terrible state as a community.
Well, that's such a shame, and that's why New Sound Radio is here to help facilitate the awakening process, not only for Hindus but for everyone. So if there's any topic that you'd like us to discuss, or if there's a certain group that you'd like awakening, then please do get in touch with the New Sound Radio team and we'll be happy to help you. So, Miraj, today's conversation is about the cow slaughter ban in India.
Yes.
So this has had, for reasons which I can't quite comprehend, there's been a lot of controversy about the cow slaughter ban in Maharashtra, and that's not actually from other communities, it's from the Hindu community itself, who are sort of outraged that cow slaughter ban is being implemented in Maharashtra. Yep. But funnily enough, it's actually in the Indian constitution already, and it's already been in place. Yeah,
that's quite right. The Animal Preservation Act, which was formulated back in 1976, actually governs the slaughter of cattle in Maharashtra, and it's actually prohibited the slaughter of bulls, bullocks, and buffaloes. It hasn't. Sorry, but the actual extension to that, which has come into effect on the 2nd of March, actually covers those areas as well. Now, I don't see what the big deal is about. There's several states that have a complete prohibition on cow slaughter altogether.
So this is before Maharashtra?
This is before the 2nd of March 2015.
Oh, okay.
There's been several states which have had this ban. All this does is actually imprisons people for a maximum of 6 months and gives them a fine of 10,000 rupees for the possession or sale of beef.
Right, so then the countries which have already enacted this, there hasn't been so much controversy around that. Is that just because Maharashtra is the only one which is penalising people?
I think this is quite recent after the particular elections of the chief ministerial elections in Maharashtra, and also the national elections as well in India. And I think there's a lot of focus on the BJP government and the local government within Maharashtra state to actually do things that are very sort of very neutral, rather than do things that are in favour of a particular community, because I'm sure we'll come on to that as well.
Yeah,
but I think there's a lot of controversy, unnecessary controversy around this particular issue, because it's a BJP government that has implemented this. If it was another, sort of if it was a Congress, for example, then I don't see
it being an issue
at all.
And the funny thing is, under Congress in 1976, there was a ban in states such as Andhra Pradesh, and Gandhi himself also said that there should be a cow slaughter ban. It's been there for ages. India is a secular country, as everyone loves to keep reminding us, and it's in the Indian Constitution. Article 48 of the Indian Constitution speaks about agriculture and prohibiting slaughters of cows and calves and other draught cattle. So it's already been in there.
Yeah.
But what the government are doing now is actually enforcing something that's already been in place.
So you make a very good point, Prerna. Actually, the question should be put on to the original advocates of this particular ban. It was the Congress and the NCP that actually suggested the ban, and really they, after strong objections, they actually scrapped the bill. The reason why they did so is because they wanted to hold certain minorities, right, in favour of their votes, and also keep the majority happy as they were speaking about a ban. So the mere idea of speaking about a particular ban actually made the majority of the people pro-Congress or pro-NCP.
So what they did was just dangle the carrot, but then actually not do anything.
Exactly.
But it's actually the BJP government that have put it into place. And what we must remember as well, that the BJP government have been voted by the electorate in India. They said in their election campaign and, the material beforehand, that they were looking to ban cow slaughter or cattle slaughter, speaking more generally. So the people from India which have voted for the BJP government have given them that mandate to work on their election manifesto. So there's nothing undemocratic or anything wrong about it, because the people have voted for a government knowing very well what the government was seeking to do, and that was just to enforce something that was already there.
Of course, and again, that is a very valid point. If we look at the election results, this particular Indian government has won by a landslide victory, is what we would call it in the UK, and having those sort of numbers, that any party wins by, really gives the party, especially the BJP, confidence to actually follow through on their particular manifesto. But also it's a very small proportion of the actual Indian and the wider international audience that are speculating whether this ban should have been sort of effective, at all. Really what we need to think about and what we need to analyse is how important are these international players. For example, there is lots of countries. I know we're going off on a slight tangent,
No, let's speak about it now.
There is lots of countries speculating about this particular ban, and in fact the ban has been in place for a number of years. It's just an extension of that. Similar states have a similar ban, and they're not being criticised.
Let's speak about the similar states. Well, which are these states, Miraj? Just so everyone knows exactly what's going on here.
So, for example, Daman and Diu, right, has a complete cattle ban. So all cattle, there's a total prohibition on the sale of beef or beef products in any form. There's a prisonable sentence of 2 years and a measly fine, in my opinion, of 1,000 rupees. There's also there's a ban on the possession, sale, or transport of beef and all beef products, and the export of bovine animals for slaughter is prohibited in Rajasthan, for example.
Okay.
So there's lots of states. There's a handful of states where this particular law has been enacted. However, people are putting focus on Maharashtra because it has had a new elected BJP government, and the central government's BJP. So it comes back to my point initially. This is being focused around, hold on, you are doing this due to sort of religious or secular reasons. I'm very, very against that, because this has been proven on an agroeconomical perspective and a level.
We'll definitely go into the benefits in a bit. The text line's being flooded. We've got a text from Subhash from Loughton, who said opponents of the BJP are working against them and are stirring the beef ban to get BJP in a bad light on an international platform. Thank you very much, Subhash, for your text. I think that's very true. I mean, as we've been talking about, it seems like a very anti-BJP move. But look at the BJP. They're Hindu nationalist, right-wing fundamentalists, which is unfortunately something that we've heard a lot, against the BJP government, which isn't actually true, just so that the Modi government is seen in a bad light and people think that they're just pro-Hindu and not pro-anyone else, which is completely untrue. I mean, now's a very good time to look into the reasons of why the cow slaughter ban was put in place. And let's not mix that up with the beef ban, because people are calling it beef ban, but actually it's not a ban on beef, it's a ban on cow slaughter.
Yeah, I think it's really important to take one step back and really think about the history of cows and why they're actually called, in inverted commas, the holy cow. A very long time ago, and don't quote me on this, cows were seen as a symbol of wealth. A time where land wasn't owned by every single individual, nor did they have homes to live in, and having a cow was a source of income, is a symbol of wealth. And people heavily relied on cows for dairy products, for milk, for yogurt, for ghee. Very
big in India, and here as well.
So they weren't dependent on the fields. They were dependent on a cow for the source of for food, for fuel and fertilizer. Those that did have farming land, and also for homes. A lot of people may know in India, you have houses made out of mud and dung as well. So, the cow also acted as a somewhat maternal figure, just going back onto the issue of milk. Just the way a mother gives you milk, when she's unable to do that after a certain stage, you're relying on the milk of a cow.
And that's not just a religious reason. I think everyone who has milk should feel like that, because they're taking something from another animal and using it.
Yeah, and I know I know lots of people that are dependent on milk from their mother, but they still have a tendency to drink milk in the pints when they're 20 to 25, 30 years old.
Exactly.
So, how do you respect that particular source of nutrition? It is to not harm the particular cow. So, and
we're going to come back to the point. I think we're going to take a quick commercial break, but see you on the other side.
Advertise on New Sound Radio for as little as £10 per day. For further details, telephone 020 8 472 9994.
Welcome back to a reasonable conversation on New Sound Radio 92 FM. Today we'll be talking about the cow slaughter ban in India, and I'm joined with Miraj Patel. Keep your texts coming in on 07961 387 787, and you can also speak to us on air and call in the studio on 0208 472 9292. Now, before the break, we were talking about the actual reasons of why Maharashtra have banned cow slaughter. Miraj, you were just speaking about the whole, maternal aspects of it. We take milk from cows, we take milk from our mothers. We should have, a sense of respect towards the cow instead of, ill-treating it and slaughtering it and eating it after we've taken the milk.
Yeah.
And also, there's been lots of sort of economic reasons of why cow slaughter should be banned as well. There was a study on the cow slaughter ban in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Andhra Pradesh, and after enforcing the ban, it showed an increase in the production of milk and organic compost, which, you know, for farming purposes and also for feeding the population, milk, you know, can be, as we said, was used for yogurt, for ghee. It can be used for a multitude of different purposes instead of just what a hamburger. So it has so many benefits.
Yeah, it's quite a it's quite an interesting actual idea of you're speaking about now killing a cow, which has provided, you know, in multiple ways for you and kept you alive, but also you have to really think about the actual poverty issue of India. There is people in India that cannot afford one meal a day or cannot drink water, clean water, and you know, to a certain extent, yes, cattle are being raised to be killed, effectively. If we now look at the economical side of how much water is actually consumed by cattle that are raised to be killed effectively, it is actually quite alarming. Apparently, the World Bank has predicted that India may run out of water by 2020. So, 1 kilo of beef actually takes 15,415 liters of water.
Wow, that's a huge amount.
So after 15,000 liters of water is consumed by a cow, you have 1 kilo of beef.
That's crazy. So in a country where people can't drink water, we're giving water to the cows instead to sort of, I don't know, make them healthy enough for them people to eat. And not everyone eats meat in India anyway. Yeah. So I don't really see the equality or the fairness in a country where people are starving.
Yeah, and this is the alarming fact. If you're going to spend 15,000 liters of water in order to produce 1 kilo of beef, whereas, for example, 1 kilo of pork probably takes about a third of the actual water consumption in terms of liters. Again, chicken would take 4,000 liters of water consumption. So the facts are quite alarming. That
so cattle do consume the most water.
Yes.
And the most feed as well. So I think, you know, in addition to water, cattle also need grains, and they're the ones that take the most out of all the other animals in the food chain. So there's a reason why it's the cattle that are being banned from being slaughtered. And not other animals. So there's economic reasons for it as well. We've just had a text come through from Anita in Ilford. There is so much choice for people to eat. I'm disappointed that cattle can't be spared. And that's true. I mean, in a country where, as we mentioned, there are other animals, there's plenty of choices for vegetarian. I mean, I'm vegetarian myself, and when I go to India, it's just insane the amount of choice I have compared to here. And even here, people are turning to vegetarianism. And we've just got a phone call. We've just got a caller on air.
Sure.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, hello. Brilliant show.
Thank you very much.
I'm very pleased that you're highlighting this because I'm a member of the Vegetarian Society.
Brilliant. So if we could have your name, please, and where you're calling from.
Sunita, calling from Barking.
Oh, hi, Sunita.
Hello, Sunita.
Yeah, hi. I mean, this is a multinational industry, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money is involved. And yeah, I'm really pleased that you've highlighted that it could feed the whole country, could actually remove poverty in India, which I think is really, really vital. And it's so sad when you see people from world going to India and the only thing they can think of is the poor people.
Exactly.
So I think not only beef, I think it should be extended to other animals as well. But that's a good start. So I'm really, really pleased that you've actually highlighting such a major and big issue in India.
Thank you so much for your words, Sunita. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunita.
Thanks for your call. Bye. And we've got that was Sunita from Ilford. We've got another text from Vinod in Stratford. He said Hindus should be ashamed of themselves, especially if they believe in karma, which I think is a very true thing. I mean, on Twitter, lots of Hindus came out against the beef ban. Well, hashtag beef ban, but, we all know it's cow slaughter now. And part of them were, the famous and the rich and the mighty. So Rishi Kapoor, who I think is quite pro-Hare Krishna, practicing Hindu, says, I'm a Hindu, and I think, it's disgraceful, I enjoy a steak, blah, blah, blah. But, as long as I'm not having steak from cows in India, it's okay if I have... I think lots of Hindus have this perception that if they have cows from outside India, then it's okay, but then having Indian cows and eating... I don't know, it's just beyond me.
Sunita makes a very good point. There are plenty of options out there for meat eaters, right? There's plenty of options there for vegetarians as well. The consumption of beef is not really needed on economical, cultural, religious, and on a health grounds as well. But Vinodji also makes a very, very valid point as well in terms of those that call themselves Hindu, and this goes back to one of the first things I said. Those that call themselves Hindus, or even actually call themselves Sikhs as well, and eat beef, which is a very, very, to be a decent Hindu, right? In inverted commas, to be a decent Hindu, you don't have to do much, but I think...
Yeah, you don't. There's not that many rules and regulations in place for us.
Exactly. I think it's quite an open type of religion and faith. But if you're going to eat beef, I think that raises some issues about your actual identity, in my opinion.
Definitely. I mean, as well as Twitter, social media has had a massive role in this. I think there's been lots of people living in India trying to, act like there's some sort of rebels, posting pictures of themselves eating beef on Facebook and Twitter, trying to sort of prove a point. And I think what's really sad is that people actually think it's cool to eat beef. And I don't know, there's been an MTV, I mean, obviously MTV would have jumped on this bandwagon as well, I'm sure, as well as all the, Western newspapers and also Indian media. And in this MTV sort of trailer, it shows these three kids, quite young, quite cool, calling up a dealer. And you think, oh, okay, what are they trying to get some drugs or something? And then they sort of bring this packet home and then they sort of listen to this Bob Marley music and start eating hamburgers and, sighing of relief. And it's like, come on, guys. If you actually showed a video of a cow getting slaughtered and then the kids taking the meat from it, I think it would be a very different reaction to these cool kids having their hamburgers.
I think that particular video is quite concerning. It's definitely, I totally understand why it's been promoted by MTV on this pro-American, pro-beef, pro-hamburger type of attitude. And I can exactly see what they're trying to do, making it out like beef is some drug, and it's so cool to do something that's illegal, and all of these other notions that come with eating beef now in Maharashtra. But I find, and this goes back to a point that I made earlier, it is the international community trying to actually interrupt the way India is governed, the way India is actually passing legislation, which they have no right or authority or opinion, valid opinion at all. And it's actually, I'm actually quite frustrated / angry at those people that try to interrupt the politics of India, because they have no place whatsoever in making that decision or making that choice or making that comment. And that video is absolutely,
it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Ridiculous. People that haven't seen it, I urge you to go on YouTube, type in beef ban or cow slaughter MTV video, and it's about 3 minutes. And the propaganda that's actually associated with it.
It's unbelievable.
And anyone with two brain cells rubbing together will know that this video is probably made by some big corporate American firm.
Shares in McDonald's.
Exactly. or a McDonald's or a Angus Steakhouse or something like that type of funded campaign, because it's ridiculous. It's actually encouraging young,
impressionable,
easily
influenced,
and very, very intelligent actually Indians to encourage them to actually do something illegal now and eat beef. What type of campaign is this?
And do you know what's really ironic, Miraj? I mean, doing some research on this as well, and also just from seeing things. So in the West, we're quite, there's a massive vegetarian lobby, there's a massive vegan lobby. We're doing so much to sort of change our diet. Everything's sort of gluten-free, dairy-free, you name it, you can get it here. And also there's actually been studies done in California. So California, I'm not sure if our listeners are aware, were experiencing a huge drought. And when they researched this, they realised that the drought was being caused because they pumped so many tons of water into feeding the livestock and the cattle. And it was actually, as you mentioned before, the amount of water that it takes to sort of, feed the cattle, which in order to be killed for consumption, is actually outstanding. And there was a video that's been done about this. It's called a sort of short documentary, Cowspiracy. So if anyone's interested, if you go to www.cowspiracy.com, that will sort of give you all the facts and figures of the environmental benefits of actually not killing cows and slaughtering cows for beef. And while people in California were, having a 2-minute shower instead of a 10-minute shower, they were like, we're not actually saving that much water. Instead, if you stop cow slaughter and stop, mass producing cows and feeding them lots of water and lots of crops, and the crops also need water, this drought wouldn't even happen in the first place. And in addition to that, the Amazon rainforest is being cleared out just to, house all this cattle. It's just outstanding.
Just going back to water consumption, because water's a big issue. Come on, you may not eat meat, or you may not eat certain products, or you may be lactose intolerant and may not drink milk or whatever it is, but you will be drinking water in some form. Water consumption, on 1 kilo of beef is probably about 15,000 litres, as I mentioned. Something like rice, 1 kilo of rice is about 2,000 litres, right? And the figures are quite alarming, because you have vegetables that are extremely good for you. You have fruit that is also very good for you, and they have considerable amount of litres of waters of consumption that are quite lower compared to meat. And meat actually consumes the most amount of water, or actually the consumption of water in litres are in the thousands, whereas to produce the same amount of produce from vegetables or from fruit is actually in the hundreds.
Yeah.
So
the facts speak for themselves,
exactly.
Don't they?
It's not something that's been fabricated by some individual, somebody else. It's actually the figures talk for themselves. If we want to survive in this world, people talking about the world ending and etc. But if we're going to survive, we need water. And it's as simple as that. And
water is more important, I think, than
beef consumption.
Exactly.
I agree.
And we've had a text come in from Ajay from Plaistow. He said, we all live in foreign countries and abide by the laws and rules. So why should overseas countries interfere in Indian politics? And it's true. Why are people from outside trying to influence Indians and sway public opinion? And for something that's already been in legislation, it's been in the Indian constitution, just because Maharashtra are now enforcing this and giving out penalties, the media, the media is, is just up in arms about it. And the Indian media as well, which we all know is influenced by the outside and is owned by outside countries as well.
Yeah. If we look at ABP News or something like Star, that has, I think that's owned by the Murdoch family. And how influential are they within the Indian media system? Quite influential. There's about 5 news channels that are quite prominent in India, and they are one of those. So if we're thinking about making India campaign that Modi ji has been promoting in Germany. I think he touched down in Germany about I think Hamburg in probably about 12 minutes ago when I last looked. But if we're thinking about Make in India, why don't we now make in India and own these particular companies rather than having international players come in and buy our companies, buy our sort of our industries, because to be honest with you, when we look at industry, when we look at media and all the various other things, that they have a huge amount of foreign investment in that particular country, in India.
Mm-hmm.
If we make in India, if we're owned by Indians, then we can influence exactly how we shape our economy, how we shape our media. Now, media should be totally independent. Yes, I understand. However, when you're having allies or enemies from various other countries actually influence the Indian media sector, I don't think that's quite independent at all. Because you're having people that are, broadly against Indian principles, owning these particular media channels
and dictating what goes out to the public and what everyone reads and the news that sort of feeds back.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting as well, I was reading an article about this, and people tried to make it not only a religious issue, they tried to make it into a caste issue as well, which I think media have no right to do. They were saying that, because of the high caste Brahmins, it's the Dalits which are in, these leather houses, and they're going to suffer so badly from this beef ban, and they're already poor and they can't afford food because of, caste discrimination. And, they're just trying to make it into a completely different argument and just twisting things. So, just a normal outsider who's picked up, Googled it on the internet, read an article, would think, wow, these Indians are so bad, they're discriminating against the lower caste. I mean, forget about the issue that people can't even drink water in India, and now they might be able to because of the cow slaughter ban and have, better agriculture or whatever. But now they're trying to make it into a caste issue as well. And they sort of take out the fact that the government have said that they will compensate those that have been affected by the cow slaughter ban. I mean, where was that piece of information in the article?
It's quite amusing, because any person that calls himself a Hindu shouldn't be eating beef anyway, right? How expensive is beef compared to other sources of food? For example, rice.
Yeah.
Example, wheat or flour. There's a huge difference in that. When we're speaking about meats, okay, maybe, perhaps in certain areas, and of course, research will determine this, there probably are some areas where beef is more cheaper than other types of meat. But broadly, I think there are other sources of food, staple food, which poor people can actually obtain and consume.
Exactly. And on that note, we've got to take another commercial break, but don't go anywhere.
Advertise on New Sound Radio for as little as £10 per day. For further details, telephone 020 8 472 9994.
Welcome back to the last part of A Reasonable Conversation on New Sound Radio 92 FM. I'm joined in the studio with Miraj Patel, and we've been talking about the cow slaughter ban. Keep your texts coming in on 07961 387 787. You can also call our studio number and speak to us on air. The number is 0208 472 9292. Now, before the break, we were talking about an article which I read, which was trying to make the cow slaughter ban into a caste issue. So not only have we had attacks on this front into a sort of religious viewpoint, but it's also trying to pick at this caste issue as well, which I just think's outrageous.
So do I, Prerna. And it's obviously there's individuals here trying to make this a caste thing for some reason. As mentioned, there's various other options and staple foods that are available, which have great benefits, which people are not obviously opting for, and I think it's somewhat due to the propaganda by the international community. But if we think about the people that actually run these meat businesses or operate in slaughterhouses, there's Muslims, there's also Hindus, there's also Christians, there's also other people that distinguish themselves as religious or groups
higher
that
class or lower class. Everyone's involved in this business.
Exactly.
It's not just one community.
So let's not give this a character. As far as economic interests are concerned, they can divert their particular meat business from cattle to something else, so that they can actually operate within the buffalo industry or in the chicken industry or in some other form. So there are options. There are lots of options. And there's also alternatives in the agricultural sector as well. So I think there's lots of options. This is not focused at one particular community, one particular religion. I think that's a very unfair comment to make.
Definitely. We've got a caller on air. Hello, welcome to A Reasonable Conversation. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, good morning. My name's Bobby, and I'm calling from New Southgate in London.
Oh, hi,
Hello,
Bobby.
Bobby.
How are you?
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. It's a beautiful morning in London town. The sun is out, and I'm happy.
Brilliant.
Okay, right. I just switched on the radio because I listen to New Sound a lot. I usually listen to the evening programs, but today I happened to switch it on in the morning, well, relatively morning, afternoon, and I heard your discussion, and I couldn't, I needed to pick up the phone and air my views on this.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for calling in.
Okay, my pleasure. What I'm about to say is my personal views, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it may not agree with your views, but it's my personal views on this. I personally think that, you can't, basically condemn something without, really understanding the deeper concerns of the community. Now, maybe you guys do not know that the basis on which India attained independence in 1947, in fact, going back to 1857, was the fact that Enfield rifles were laced with the meat of, the spine of cows.
Okay.
And that caused the revolt in 1857, which led to the Great Indian Mutiny, for which you and all of us Indians, attained freedom from being a slave race.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mangal Pandey was the man, wasn't he?
Correct.
Bobby? Yeah.
Now the thing is, to the Hindu religion and to the Hindu philosophy, and if you come from India, if you know anything about the history of the country, beef has always been considered to be, something which we do not eat because of the fact that we worship the cow. It gives us milk,
and also Sikhs as well. It's not just a Hindu issue.
I know. I'm a Sikh myself. I'm speaking as a Sikh.
Okay.
When I speak as a Sikh, Sikhs and Hindus are, in fact, we came from the same
Brilliant.
basic religion. So
I'm glad you think that.
Yeah, and so I speak as a Sikh, by the way, okay, and also a Hindu because I come from a mixed family. So and I use Hinduism in the generic form, okay, not just anyone who lives in India, or in fact anyone who lives in this country should respect the culture and the history of the country. If I live in the UK, then I have to respect the laws here, and I can't just rewrite history of thousands of years of England. Similarly, if you are living in India, people in India do not eat beef. That is in that, just like if you go to an Islamic Muslim country, they don't eat pork.
That's very true.
Now, on that basis, the cow is revered. It is allowed to go roam freely in the streets of India. Okay, and if you were driving your car or your motor vehicle and you were to hit a car, a cow, that would be some form of criminal offense. Okay, you have to respect the culture and the tradition of the country you live in, irrespective of the country or you're from. So you can't just say that just because they've got a law which bans the slaughter of cows, it's wrong. No, it's not. In the context of the history, the culture, thousands of years of worshipping the cow, I don't think it's wrong. I really believe, because I've lived in both countries. I've lived in India as well as here. And I think, the law is, in my opinion, in my considered opinion, it's a valid law for that country. It may not sound reasonable to us guys here or you guys on the basis that we live in England, but then we don't live in India. If you were to go to India and go to McDonald's and ask for a beef burger, it wouldn't happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. So
Yeah,
what you're saying is you agree with the cow slaughter ban. You think because of
in
our
India,
history, in India,
yes, because the thing is, you see, it's not only about, it's not just like a ban, and we're looking, you guys are viewing it with respect from a Western perspective. Try and put yourself in try and think like an Indian person, someone who worships the cow, someone who, basically, there's been thousands of years of history connected with worshipping the cow. We call it Gau Mata, right?
Definitely.
Which is, you just can't rewrite or forget that. It's not done. So I think this ban is correct in the context of an Indian philosophy. Yeah. Okay, I mean, this is my own personal opinion.
No, thank you very much for sharing your personal opinion with us. We're very pleased to hear that. I mean, because there are so many additional factors in addition to economic benefits and the social benefits. There's also the Indian history as well. And thank you very much for raising that.
No,
thank you very
pleasure.
much for your call, Bobby.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks. I think Bobby makes an extremely valid point. If we look at the 1857 mutiny, there was a huge revolt by Indian soldiers that used to work for the East India Company. And this was a turning point in India's history, actually. People like Mangal Pandey, people like Rani Lakshmibai, who had fought against the British on the basis of these new cartridges, gun bullets, effectively, had pork and beef gelatine, almost. They have the hooves of cows and pigs to bind the actual bullet together, and they revolted on this basis as a unified unit in India, and revolted against the actual the East India Company, and it was a turning point, and this shows the power of one India and Indians against against the issues like beef and pork, and we also have to understand another point that Bobby made, that it's very relevant and very acceptable looking at India, right? It's very acceptable to have a beef ban in India because that's the history, that's the culture,
exactly.
That's the it's the faith, etc.
And people should respect that. Exactly,
and we are not as Indians saying, oh, we should have etc. and so in the States or in Bolivia or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, Hindus worldwide are very respectful to the countries they live in, but in return, other countries should be respectful, and other sort of viewpoints and beliefs should be respectful of the Indian belief and how India has been and wants to continue to be. And if they want to preserve the culture, religion, heritage, then who is anyone else to try and stop them? I mean, the BJP government, as you said in the beginning, have been elected. They have a mandate, and that's what they want to do. We've got a couple of texts come in and calls. Durga Das from Ilford is saying, good show, keep it up. Thank you very much for that. Madhu from Forest Gate has said, well said, Bobby, good point. Cow ban is part of Hindu culture. And it's true. I mean, in addition to all the economic benefits we've spoken about, the Hindu aspect does have some bearing to it as well. I mean, we're running short out of time, but we've got a couple of texts that we need to get through before we wrap up. We've had a text from Nancy from Reading. She said almost 20 out of 29 states in India ban cow slaughter with a certain sort of punishment. But why such a stern punishment of 5 or 10 years imprisonment for even possession of beef? And I think that relates to the Maharashtra aspect.
Yeah, I don't think every single... Well, it's 5 years imprisonment. Why such a harsh punishment? Because people in India tend to actually go against things like this.
There's always ways around. You can bribe someone, you can go in prison, get out. I mean, unless you have something strict and enforceable, no one's going to take any notice of it.
And if we look at the actual, the Indian legal system and the court system, it takes absolutely ages for for something to actually get to court. And I think that's why we need such a strict system in place, so people don't actually go against the particular legislation or the law.
We're slowly running out of time, but we've got a caller on the line. Hello, welcome to Reasonable Conversation. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Himesh, and I'm calling from Ilford, Essex.
Oh, hi,
Hello,
Himesh.
how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I just wanted to say it's a really important and valid discussion that you guys are raising today.
Mm-hmm.
As a Hindu from born and bred in the UK, and I don't eat beef myself, but have friends actually in this country who do, yet even they understand and consider the slaughter ban actually very valid.
Brilliant.
And it's to the point that Bobby made earlier, and I think Miraj has as well, is that ultimately we live in every society around the world, and whichever society you live in, you have to embrace that society. That's the reason why you're in that country.
Exactly.
It's very clear in many countries these days, especially, I mean, it's not specifically I'm saying about Islamic countries, but if you went to Dubai and you were drinking alcohol in the streets, you will be imprisoned, or you'll be punished. If you go to, if you were in Pakistan and you stole something, they'll chop your hands off because it's Sharia law. Ultimately, you have to accept that. Whether you think it's extreme or not, it's the reality, and that's how their culture is. So our culture, the problem with India is that previously it was called Hindustan, and everyone was in essence Hindu. And of course we've always had, from centuries, the influx of different sort of Mughal empires and, different sort of, it's been very tolerant, shall we say.
Yeah.
However, tolerance sometimes, it's like the UK. UK has generally had to become a very tolerant country in the past 20, 30 years or even more, since we've had an influx from so many different religions and
Unfortunately,
societies.
we are running out of time, so
Okay.
you
I just wanted to... Sure. I'll just make my point very quickly. I think ultimately everyone agrees that, from my circles of friends and people that I've spoken to, even at work, who are Anglo-Saxon English, that ultimately you have to embrace the culture of the country that you live in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And if anyone has a problem with it, I think the only way is get your passport and leave.
Exactly. Thank you very much
Thank you
very much for your call. Sorry we had to cut you short, but it's coming up to the end of the show. I think we've had a great show. Unfortunately, apologies to those text messages we haven't been able to read out on air. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I second that thought. And if you don't like the legislation in a particular jurisdiction, just leave. Go to somewhere where it's favourable to you. And it's as simple as that,
beef,
really, isn't it?
Not eating beef really isn't the end of the world. There's so many alternatives for everyone. I mean, India is quite, it caters for everyone.
It does.
It's quite a tolerant society, so actually we're really not that bad.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening. That's it from us. Goodbye and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks for having me, and I've really enjoyed today, and thanks everyone for listening.